I'm John Kreutzer, retiring Marine and licensed real estate agent, here to talk to you about what company I used to get my licensing through and why you should use them too. If you're a veteran considering a career in real estate, or if you're active duty looking at retirement considering real estate, or if you're just going to get out of the Marine Corps and you want to explore and see if this is right for you, we're going to have a conversation about the company that I went with and why I did. Now, my story is unique. I was in Okinawa, Japan when I got my license, which is also where I got this super awesome hat. It says Battle Royale, Sonic Speed, F1 Pilot Maintain Their Courage to the End. I don't know what that means, but it's a hat from Okinawa. I have a whole collection of these hats. I absolutely love them. So stick around and let me explain to you what company I went with and why. Thanks. So I chose a company called Real Estate Express. I got some of their info from theclose.com, where Chris Linzel, I believe his name is, he's the editor over there. He listed out like the top 10 real estate companies to get your Texas real estate license from. And after I did the math and considered some other factors, Real Estate Express seemed to be right for me. I'll explain why later. But the top factors I considered, being at the time, again, I was in Okinawa, Japan. All the courses were online. From Okinawa, Japan, couldn't very well fly to Texas a couple times a week to do my real estate classes. So this was all online, and it gave me the option of getting hardback books, and I'm old school. I like that. So that satisfied my my study habits and the methods in which I used to study, and then the online portion. Now the price was right. Price being the second factor. It was under $600. I was able to get licensed. Now they run a standard like 30% off sign up for the newsletter, but I do have a 35% off code. So if you're interested, I'm going to add the code in the links and it'll save you the extra 5%. And on like a $800 bill, 5%, do the math. It'll save you some extra bucks there. And the other thing, it sort of goes back to the online, but this was 100% remote. I could do this from anywhere in the world with an internet connection. And I suppose because I had the books, I wouldn't necessarily even need an internet connection to complete the course of study. You would just need to go on and do the quizzes and other things. But it was 100% remote. Of course, with the exception, now the licensing exam, you're going to have to do in a proctored environment. We'll talk more about that later. But one thing I really liked about the Real Estate Express was they have these sort of chapter end of course classes, because in totality, I think there's like 6 or 8 courses that you have to go through. And before you can move on to the next one, you have to take I just want to say it's like an 80 question test, and it's got to be proctored. And that makes sure that you actually understand the information they're teaching and you're not just sort of reading and not comprehending. Because how many times we've done that? Like I've read pages of something. I'm like, what did I just read? I need to go back and review this and make sure I'm really comprehending and understanding this information. All right, so the online classes with the option for books. With these classes, you can do them 100% at your own pace. You can take 4 weeks, you can take 12 weeks. I think the minimum is 4 weeks, so you can't just like breeze through it in a weekend. They do have time thresholds. You have to spend a certain amount of time on each topic. I want to say it was like 72 hours or something. Again, the books were super helpful because I'm old school. I like to go through, highlight things that I find important, and the books mirrored very well with the online material. So online material was not a video you're watching somebody give a lecture. It was interactive. You could move things around. You could select different parts, and would give you different information. An event. Every now and then they would have a knowledge check. So, and again, this goes back to being able to understand what you're actually reading, make sure you're comprehending it. And if you messed something up, you could go back and it would link you to the information again, and you could review it to make sure you had a solid understanding. Now, this platform is ideal for the military. So the hours are whenever. It's hyper flexible. You don't have to be on there certain hours or have something completed by a certain time. Again, it's totally at your own pace. And again, I did all of this from my kitchen table in Okinawa, Japan. Now, once we moved on to talking about the licensing portion, that worked out very well in Okinawa, Japan, by virtue of the Air Force using the same proctoring service as the Texas Real Estate Commission. So one of the great aspects that I really love the most about Real Estate Express is 100% remote. Mentioned it earlier, but I didn't have to go to anything brick and mortar. I wasn't even tied to going online at certain times because there was a professor there or whatever. There were really no due dates. It was all self-paced. Now at the end of every course, they had an exam. So I want to say in totality it was like 6 courses or 8 courses, and it would take about 2 weeks to plow through each one of those courses. But at the end there was a comprehensive exam, and I want to say it encompassed like 80 to 100 questions, and that had to be proctored, but it was proctored via a third-party proctoring service. So I set up my MacBook, and then I had my phone off in the corner recording to make sure I didn't pull up the cheat codes or whatever. And like I was taking my tests, we'll say 12 noon or 2 p.m., and this is a 24-hour proctoring service. So there's some college student in Arizona who's watching like 3 or 4 of these different tests go down, and they're getting I don't know how many bucks an hour. But it was super convenient because at first, like, oh man, now I have to sort of gerrymander my time to make sure that I'm going to take this test during X hour back in the U.S. and reverse plan from there. But it absolutely wasn't the case. I was able to do it at my leisure, 100%. And then the results are instant. So I knew immediately, like, all right, I passed the test. This is fantastic. We can move on to the next portion. Now, let's talk about the licensing exam. So the licensing exam is going to be different for each of the 50 states, and there's probably one for like Guam and other territories, so on and so forth. Now, all licensing exams, regardless of state, encompass 70% of what's called the national exam. So there's certain things, no matter what state, you have to know, and then there's another 30% based on state nuance. And for Texas, for instance, dual agency is not allowed. Dual agency is where I would represent both the buyer and the seller, and I get all that commission. It's just not allowed. That's a Texas thing. It may be allowed in a different state, but that's just an example of some of the nuanced differences between states. So back to the licensing exam. As it turns out, the United States Air Force uses the same proctoring service as does the Texas Real Estate Commission. So I was able to drive to, those of you who are familiar with Okinawa, drive to Kadena Air Force Base, sign up with them, and take my Texas exam, my Texas licensing exam in Okinawa. Instant results. So it was fantastic. It was a great experience. Okay, so let's talk about pricing. Now, in previous videos, I talked about the barriers of entry. To get that doctor and lawyer salary, the barrier of entry very tall, both in academic acumen, if you will, and then the price of entry to those types of schools, the application process, so on and so forth. Now, less than $600, I was able to get all of the classes, the pre-licensing classes required for my Texas real estate license. Now, additional costs depending on state, you're gonna have to pay for the license application, which is probably like $400 or $500. But if we're just talking classes by themselves, this was less than $600. And again, I have a code that I'll link in here that'll give you an additional percentage off. Now, when I say the price is right, like even if you don't pursue a career in real estate, just having the knowledge of being able to walk into a real estate transaction and understand the nuances of a contract, what are riparian rights, why is a home inspection important, what's a seller's disclosure, and all of these things that if you're going to make an investment, if you're going to try to grow your wealth, it's phenomenal opportunity to just be able to understand all of this for $600. Additionally, you're probably going to buy property at some point in the future, so why would you not spend the $600 and then the $400 or $500 to get your real estate license, because you're going to save a ton of money on the commission. Like I said in another video, your average home price is going to garnish, at 2.5% commission, a $8,000 gross commission right there. So you're saving yourself commissions by possessing a license, even if you're not a practicing real estate agent. And then just to figure out if this is right for you, because I found that it's having graduated college, it might take a semester or two or a year, or if you're like some folks I know, 9 years to get a 4-year degree, to kind of figure out what you're really into, what you drive with, what's economically viable in terms of paying off student loans and getting into a job situation. For $600, you can figure out, can I wrap my head around real estate? Is this something that I can do? Now, the material, I will say, is pretty dry. The material doesn't speak to prospecting or relationship building, but it's primarily focusing on the legal nuances of practicing real estate. Who's who in the zoo in terms of who's the seller's agent, who's the buyer's agent, fiduciary duties, and a lexicon of verbiage that's specific to the real estate industry. All right, so here's some of the bonus features that I really liked about Real Estate Express. The first one being I could create custom review tests. So I could take a series of questions from course 1 or chapter 1 or however it's partitioned. I could take questions from there, I could take questions from another section, and then it would flag whichever ones that I missed. I could then create a whole new test based upon only failed answers. So if it was something I just continually didn't understand, then this was going to allow me to continually review it until I understood it, and I would know that, say for instance, in totality I missed 30 questions. I could just take that test again and again until I culled that 30 down to 0 and I understood the material 100%, which was phenomenal. That's the way I learned. I really enjoyed that. It was a huge benefit. Another bonus was the flashcard module. So you could take all these different terms and you could play whatever guessing game with yourself, and you could flag some. So then you could create another flashcard deck based upon the terms that you had flagged or clicked whatever on that you somehow want to set apart and just review those. So that was also a benefit. I don't personally use flashcards too much, but for those who are like flashcard minded, that's an awesome tool. And then through the course material itself, there would be periodic knowledge checks. So going back to I've read 8 pages of stuff, yet I have no idea what I'm reading. This would force you to ensure that you understood the material 100%, not 100%. I think it was like a 70 or 80%. If you missed 7 or 8 of those out of 10 questions, it made you go back to the beginning on the online portion. You had to sit there and click through everything again. So it incentivized comprehension and then reinforced it through an actual test. So again, those are 3 bonus features that I really liked about Real Estate Express. And depending on your study habits, I would highly recommend the Real Estate Express because of those, because it's reinforcing good study habits, and the peace of mind that I had going into the exam, knowing I had just taken practice test after practice test until I knew every answer to every question, that really boosted my self-confidence, and ultimately, walking a test with self-confidence, you're going to do better. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I'm trying to reach out to primarily a military crowd. So whether you're getting out of the military soon, you're retiring out of the military after 20 plus years, or you're already out of the military and considering a career in real estate, please follow me on my real estate adventure. With regard to today's video, the one point I love to drive home about this company is I was able to get all of my pre-licensing requirements done 100% remote. I didn't have to leave my house in Okinawa other than to take the actual Texas licensing exam. And all this can be done without having to concern yourself with what time it is back in the States. If your professor's going to be there, this is something you can completely do at your own pace. And the bonus features they offered and the study materials they offered, I thought it was phenomenal. I have absolutely zero complaints. It was everything I needed and nothing I did not. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Semper Fi.